I believe we left off, I had that in there and I just forgot it. We left off on page 1223. I want to back up to the bottom of 1222. This is Act 4, Scene 1, line 135, about line 137 or so. Theseus, Hippolyta, Aegeus, and their followers have come in. They find the lovers asleep on the ground in the forest, and Aegeus says, here's Lysander, here's my daughter, arrest them, kind of a thing. You know, we see Demetrius and Helena next to each other. They're kind of wondering what's going on. So horns are sounded, and we see Lysander and the others get up, and then they kneel. They kneel to Theseus. Theseus says, get up. And then he says, I know you two, Demetrius and Lysander, are rival enemies. How comes this gentle concord in the world? That hatred is so far from jealousy, to sleep by hate and fear no enmity. Okay? So he brings up the idea or the notion of concord. Anybody know what that literally means? Con means together or with. It's also the same as co. Okay? Cord is related to, same word essentially, as heart. So, with hearts together, working in harmony and such, he says, how comes this gentle concord in the world, that hatred is so far from jealousy, to sleep by hate and fear no enmity? Last time he saw them, what kind of relationship did Demetrius and Lysander have? The exact opposite. They were full of discord. Lysander replies, don't know. Half asleep, half waking, don't know how I got here. But then he admits, I and Hermia came here to get married outside Athenian law and such. Aegeus, that's it, enough, I want the law on their heads. Okay? So Demetrius says, because Aegeus refers to Demetrius and says, he would have taken your right. Demetrius, my lord, fair Helen told me of their stealth, of this their purpose hither to this wood, and I in fury hither followed them. That is, once Helen told me, he was filled with rage. Why did he go? To stop them. Fair Helena in fancy, a little gloss down there at the bottom, driven by love. Fancy also has the same meaning as fantasy, in imagination, in kind of unreality. He says, follow me. But my good Lord, I wot, that is, I know not by what power, but by some power it is, my love to Hermia melted as the snow. Okay, now notice the imagery. Snow occurs when? Winter. It melted as the snow, seems to me now as the remembrance of an idol god. A god is a shiny thing, bling, in other words. It's something that is meant to distract the eye. Okay? So, he's saying, before, my love to Hermia was like snow, and now it's melted. So it's my winter, and now I'm in the springtime of his love for Helena. As a remembrance of an idol god, which in my childhood I did dote upon, and all the faith, the virtue of my heart, the object and the pleasure of mine eye, is only Helena. And we've done what? we've gone full circle. Back to the situation, the way society was at the beginning before the play began. Okay, remember I talked about with this image, you begin with a rupture in society. In one sense, you could argue that that rupture began before the play opened. Because what was it? What initiated it? Leave the fairies out for a moment. It was Demetrius wooing Helena, getting her love, and then turning against her in desiring Hermia. Because when the play opens, he desires Hermia, but he's already won Helena's heart. That's part of that rupture in society. Here, all is made right. Okay? To her, my lord, and then he announces it, was I betrothed. He didn't just win her heart. They were engaged. Okay? Meant a bit more, apparently, than in our day. Was I betrothed ere I saw Hermia? I was betrothed, engaged to Helena, before I ever even saw Hermia. Which is kind of odd because it sounds like, based on their conversations within the play, Helena and Hermia were kind of thick as thieves. Or at least in their younger days they were. But like a sickness did I loathe this food. What food? Helena. Okay? But as in health come to my natural taste, now I do wish it, love it, long for it. So he's saying Helena is what feeds him. Not literally, obviously. She, to use the line from the stupid Jerry Maguire film, she completes him. And he's saying, in my sickness, I loathed what was good for me. Because what do we often do if we're really sick? We need food, right? Because if you don't eat, you're going to die. But sometimes that's the very thing you don't want. So he says, but now that I'm healthy, I come to my natural taste. That is, I come back to what I am supposed to. Now I do wish it, love it, long for it, and will forevermore be true to it. Theseus, fair lovers, Lysander, Hermia, Demetrius, Helena, you are fortunately met. That goddess fortune that I talked about has kind of said, you go here and you go here. Aegeus, I will overbear your will. Now remember, when beginning and talking about comedy, I said that not necessarily everybody at the end of a comedy ends up happy. I don't think Aegeus is all that happy still. And in most of the productions I've seen, he's kind of walking around almost kicking the ground. He still hasn't gotten his way, okay? And he says, in the temple by and by, with us these couples shall eternally be knit. Notice, he's making an official pronouncement there, a decree. Has he asked them? I mean, in one sense, it's a facetious question. Because it's clear Hermia loves, get the right name, Lysander, Helena loves Demetrius, and they want to spend, their lives together, etc. So, they leave Demetrius. These things seem small and undistinguishable, like far-off mountains turned into clouds. What are these things? Because look at Hermia. Methinks I see these things with parted eye, when everything seems double. Again, these things. We haven't been told what these things are. Parted eye. Something in my eye. Helena, so methinks, that is, I think the same. And Demetrius is like a jewel, he's mine. And Demetrius, are we awake? Seems to me that we sleep, we dream. Do not you, wasn't the Duke just, yeah, my father, and Hippolyta. And he bid us fall into the temple, and we're going to get married. and we're going to have our happily ever after. Demetrius, why then we are awake. Let's follow him. And let us recount our dreams. Notice, because each one is thinking what? I had a dream, you had a dream, you had a dream, you had a dream, and the dreams are different. And yet they all turn out to be the exact same dream. Bottom wakes up. Because Bottom's been asleep on the stage during this. Just kind of hidden. He wakes up and he says, when my cue comes, call me and I will answer. My next is most fair Pyramus. And then he realizes he was asleep. And he's had a dream. This is one of the most famous little short speeches in Shakespeare's comedies. Because whoever plays Bottom can really ham this up. I mean, what you want as an actor playing Bottom is somebody who just likes to go totally over the top. All right? So, gods of my life, stolen hints and left me asleep. He's talking about the other rustics. I have had a most rare vision. I have had a dream, past the wit of man, to say what dream it was. And when he says that, he's echoing St. Paul. And Paul talking about, knowing a man who had been up to the seventh heaven or third heaven or whatever it is. So, man is but an ass, notice the irony, if he go about to expound this dream. If someone tries to explain this dream, he's an ass. And then Bottom's going to do that. Methought I was, there is no man can tell. Methought I was, and methought I had. And at this point, most of the productions I've seen, he's usually feeling his head and his ears and his nose. But man is but a patched fool if he will offer to say what methought I had. The eye of man hath not heard. True, right? Because eyes don't hear. Paul says, the eye of man hath not seen, the ear of man hath not heard. Okay? Eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen, man's hand is not able to taste, his tongue to conceive, nor his heart to report what my dream was. See, he thinks he's being profound. I will get Peter Quince to write a ballad of this dream. It'll be called Bottom's Dream, because it hath no bottom. That is, it is so deep and so profound, it can't be fathomed. If you know the literal meaning of fathoming. Okay? Scene 2. So, we now go back to Athens. So, Act 1, Athens. Act 2, wood. Act 3, wood. Act 4, scene 1, wood. 4, scene 2, Athens. And 5, Athens. Now we're back in Athens. What reigns? What's in control? What does Athens represent again? Louder? Order, law, civilization, social structure, all those kinds of things. Okay? So we see the actors talking about, their play, and Bottom comes in and he tells them our play is preferred and such. Okay? Act 5. We're now at the palace. So it's not just in Athens. You're at the palace, which is the seat of authority, the seat of law and order, all those kinds of things. Hippolyta. 'Tis strange, my Theseus, that these lovers speak of. It is strange, the word that, we would say what? It is strange what these lovers speak of. Now, we haven't heard what the lovers have spoken of. It's not what we heard back in Act 4. Because a little bit of time has passed. And the implication is the lovers have recounted their dreams and experiences to Theseus and such. And so Theseus gets another one of the most famous passages in Shakespeare. More strange than true. More strange, odd, mysterious. And he's saying, I don't totally believe this. Something else is going on. More strange than true. I never may believe these antique, okay? I'll talk about that in a moment. Fables, nor these fairy toys. Your gloss has for antic, old-fashioned, punning on antic, strange, grotesque, okay? It also kind of means frenzied, like frantic, very similar words, right? So he says, I can't accept these old stories or these strange, grotesque stories, nor these fairy toys, okay? Trifling stories about fairies. I don't believe in fairies, Theseus says. Why? Lovers and madmen have such seething brains, such shaping fantasies, that apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. What does to seethe mean, that verb?
Like to be like engulfed with rage.
Okay, really close. It's literally a term from cooking. It's to be put into boiling water. It's seething, it's boiling, it's cooking in that water. Okay? So, lovers and madmen have seething brains. Right? How so? What do you often do? If someone is acting really, really strange, what will an EMT or a medic or a nurse do? What's one of the first things? They check the temperature. Because what happens, have any of you ever had a really high temperature, like 105, 104? What happens when your body temperature reaches that level?
The brain starts to boil.
And what do? You hallucinate. You see things that aren't there. Because the brain's kind of, cooking. That's why you find somebody in a situation where their body's 105, 106 degrees. What do? Immediately, you cover them in ice. You got to get that temperature down because they'll die within minutes of the body temperature getting that high. So, lovers and madmen have seething brains. Such shaping fantasies, imaginations. And notice what the imaginations do, the word before it. They shape. They give form to what's up here. That apprehend more than cool reason ever comprehends. So what does it mean to apprehend? To reach out and grab. To take control of. All right? So lovers and madmen have brains that apprehend more than cool reason comprehends. Their brains, in other words, see things, that's the apprehending. The shaping fantasies create things. Okay? That's the apprehending more than cool reason comprehends. What's the difference between apprehension and comprehension?
Comprehension is like understanding.
Yeah.
I think apprehension is stock.
Okay. So, comprehending means you understand something. You reason something through. Notice lovers and madmen can't do that. Why? Because they're not governed by cool reason. Cool, not hot, not seething. Cool reason looks at what? It looks at facts. It looks at data points. It looks at observable reality. Whether that is this kind of observable reality or the kind of stuff that comes through the Webb telescope, which, I read stuff about what astrophysicists are saying, what they see, and I'm like, that's all a bunch of hooey. I mean, what's the real evidence? It's speculation upon speculation upon speculation kind of thing, okay? The lunatic, so first he talked about the lover and madman. Now, the lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination, all compact. And I can't help but think, could be entirely wrong, that Shakespeare, in one sense, is kind of talking about himself. Why? He wrote poems. He wrote love poems, the sonnets, okay? And he apparently at least was a lover once in his life, because, he got his girlfriend pregnant, and then they got married, had 3 kids, etc., etc. Love's got to be, in there somewhere. The lunatic, the lover, and the poet are of imagination, all compact. You've got a gloss. Formed, composed. So imagination is what forms, shapes, creates the lover, the poet, and the madman. How so? One sees more devils than vast hell can hold. That's the madman. A real, true lunatic, the word lunatic comes from Luna, being under the influence of the moon, sees what? Sees things all over that the rest of us who aren't lunatic don't see. I no longer will say, it doesn't mean they're not there. Okay? My dad, shortly before he died, he had Alzheimer's and a brain tumor. And he saw stuff that the rest of us are going, what the hell is he talking about? The thing is, he saw the same things, kind of again and again and again. And he could describe them. I mean, before he really lost it, he would write these really long emails that are like the beginnings of a novel. And we're going, damn, I wish some of this would happen to me, because it's, quite detailed and everything. That's kind of what he's getting at. The lover, all right, all as frantic, that is just as crazy in one sense as the lunatic, sees Helen's beauty in a brow of Egypt. See, the lunatic sees the world peopled with, as he put it, devils. Okay? It doesn't have to mean literal devils. It can just mean adversaries, enemies. All right? The lover, notice, all is frantic, sees Helen. Who's Helen? Helen of Troy. Okay? Supposedly, the woman whose beauty, the face that launched 1,000 ships, that began the whole Trojan War. She won the contest that Paris entered in, I think it was Paris, entered into with 3 goddesses, Athena, Aphrodite, and Juno, I think, as to which was the most beautiful. Which of those 3? Or maybe it was Athena, Aphrodite, and Helen. And he said Helen. Okay? Goddesses don't like it when you choose a woman as being more beautiful than they are. They tend to screw around with people's lives. Trojan War was part of that. Okay? But he sees Helen's beauty in what? A brow of Egypt. What's that mean? In a dark-skinned woman. Now, a woman from Egypt doesn't have the same complexion as a woman from Nigeria or South Africa, or, pick your kind of sub-Saharan country. Sub-Saharan, much, much, much darker. Okay? Either way, not a white person. Helena, white, Greek. Okay, maybe a little, more olive skinned than your pale Caucasian kind of a thing. So the lover sees Helen's beauty in the brow of Egypt. What is the conception of beauty in Shakespeare's day? White. white. Powdered sugar white on the face, okay? The poet's eye, so we have the lover, the madman sees devils everywhere. The lover sees blackness, really, as beauty. The poet's eye in a fine frenzy rolling. What does that mean? Eye rolling in the head. If you see somebody and their eyes are kind of literally rolling in their head, what does that tell you? This person's not in a normal state. This person is not well. That is someone who's, you need to put restraints on. You need to get the guys in the white coats. The poet's eye in a fine frenzy rolling doth glance from heaven to earth, from earth to heaven, and what? As imagination bodies forth the forms of things unknown. So, just as the imagination does what? What does that mean? Bodies forth the forms of things unknown. Is Theseus real? Is Hippolyta real? Is Puck real? Is Titania real? Is Oberon real? Is Harry Potter real? Is Middle Earth real? None of that's real, right? Where did it all begin? In the mind of an author, in an author's imagination. J.K. Rowling had her first idea of Harry Potter on a train from Manchester, England to London, England. At one moment in time, she had no idea. Had never heard the name Harry Potter. Literally, a second later, she has this fully formed idea of a boy who discovers on his 11th birthday that his parents were murdered by the greatest dark wizard who ever lived, and that dark wizard wants to kill him. Where'd the idea come from? More importantly for this, what does she do with the idea? J.R.R. Tolkien one morning, early summer, was grading entrance exams to Oxford. He had a blue book in front of him. I've held this thing in my hand, okay? He had a blue book in front of him with the student's entrance essay. He turned the page, it was blank, and with his pencil he wrote, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." He had no idea what a hobbit was. He had never heard the word. But what did he do from that point? He bodied forth the forms of things unknown. In his imagination, he took the Hobbit and started to create a story. J.K. Rowling took the 11-year-old boy, Harry Potter, and wrote a big, long 7-volume story. Shakespeare took his sources and bodied forth. How did it body forth? You have it in your hands. And what do you do when you read it? You create images in your mind. So that whether you want to or not, from this point, probably till you die, you'll have some kind of image of Bottom in your mind, or Titania, or Oberon, okay? So, notice, the poet, go back up a second, glances from heaven to earth and earth to heaven, okay? And as imagination creates, bodies forth the forms of things unknown, what does the poet do? The poet's pen turns them, those things unknown, to shapes and gives to airy nothing a local habitation and a name, such as Athens. Now, is there a real Athens? Yes, there is. The Athens in this play, it is an airy nothing in Shakespeare's mind. The wood is an airy nothing in Shakespeare's mind. But he has created it so that we can do what? We can enter that Athens, we can enter that wood, we can enter that Thebes, we can enter that Corinth, we can enter, with Abner Snopes, we can watch the barn burn, the whole 9 yards. such tricks hath strong imagination, that if it would but apprehend some joy, if the imagination would apprehend, would take hold of some joy. Think apprehend like, you'll hear cops talk about, I apprehended the subject or suspect. Literally took hold of, okay? That if it would but apprehend some joy, what? It comprehends some bringer of that joy. So back up. Strong imagination does what? If it takes hold of a joy, if it finds a joy, it then does what? It comprehends, it understands. If there is some kind of joy, then what must have occurred? See, this Shakespeare right here is getting extremely, deeply philosophical. Because he's suggesting joy, an experience of joy, must involve what?
Pain. Suffering.
Possibly. The experience of pain and the experience of joy both suggest, it's kind of a corollary. Both suggest what? He's saying there has to be a cause, a bringer of that joy and of that pain. The joy, the pain, doesn't merely, Shakespeare is suggesting, arise from within. Okay? There's got to be something out there, in other words. We're going to hear Hamlet talk about the same kind of thing in entirely different terms. The character Hamlet is going to say, how does he put it exactly? I could be a king of infinite space, bounded up in a nutshell, like a walnut shell. So find a walnut or an acorn or something, and he says, I could be a king of infinite space if I were inside that little shell. But for dreams. Why does he say but for dreams? Because he's suggesting the dreams here, joys, come from outside the shell. Where do the dreams come from? Okay? So, it comprehends some bringer of that joy. And so he gives us another example. Maybe that was a little too deep. Theseus seems to imply. Or a much more down-to-earth example, because I would bet, got a 20 in my wallet, I would bet every one of you experienced what he describes in the next two lines. I know I did. Of course, I grew up with the Zodiac Killer, literally at work 30 miles away from me. Or in the night, imagining some fear. Okay, imagining some fear. Notice, is the fear real?
No.
Is there a real object? No. Imagining some fear, how easy is a bush supposed to bear? Or make it a little more personal. You're a little kid, you're lying in your bed at night, and you hear something. Like we had ivy growing up part of our wall, and we had rats living in the ivy. And every now and then, I'd hear, okay? Wouldn't necessarily know it was a rat. Or an example that's going to come up later, a shirt thrown over the back of a chair, over something else, a robe hanging. Can, if you wake up and you're groggy, look like what? A person, That's his point. The imagination, as he put it easier, such tricks have strong imagination. Hippolyta. So, he's just done what? He's given this big, long discourse about how the imagination plays tricks on us. Why? Well, that's apparently what happened to the four lovers. Hippolyta just cuts his knees out from under him. But all the story of the night told over, and all their minds transfigured so together, more witnesseth than fancies images, and grows to something of great constancy. In other words, okay, it'd be one thing for one person to have that experience. You could say maybe two have that experience. But four? No. Mass hallucination, they all had the exact same dream. Doesn't happen. No, she says there's something of great constancy. And you've got a gloss. Certainty. There's something real here. Okay? However, strange and admirable. Admirable means kind of taking one's reason. Amazing you. Okay? So, in come the lovers. And Theseus asks Philostrate, what do you have on tap for us tonight? What kind of revels and entertainment? And so he starts reading from his list, and he gets down to line 56. A tedious brief scene of young Pyramus and his love Thisbe, very tragical mirth. What's the problem? It can't be both tedious and brief. Tedious means it takes a long time. Brief obviously doesn't. Nor can it be tragical and mirthful. Mirthful, full of joy, happiness, lightheartedness. Tragical, despair, That is hot ice and wonder strange snow. How should we find the concord of this discord? Notice, every time Shakespeare does a play within a play, the play within the play somehow accentuates, builds upon usually the major theme of the larger play. Okay? So Philostrate says what it is, and he says, you don't want this one. Okay? Theseus, who are going to do it? 72. Hard-handed men that work in Athens here. That is, men with calluses on their hands, because they work with their hands all day, which never labored in their minds till now. These guys aren't thinkers. And now have toiled their unbreathed memories with this same play against your nuptial. That's it. We'll have that one. No. You don't want that one. Philostrate says, it's not for you. I've heard it. It's nothing. Nothing in the world. Okay? It's, in other words, it's like a what? It's like a dream, which is nothing. He's saying it's a big zilch. Unless you can find sport in their intents. What does he mean by that? Unless you can take pleasure in their intentions. Okay? Extremely stretched and conned with cruel pain to do you service. Their intentions, he says, are to do you service. To show you kind of worshipfulness. But their intentions are stretched and pained. What is he saying about how they will be able to enact this play? It's going to be really bad. But their intentions are good. Theseus, I will hear that play. Notice, he doesn't ask Hippolyta. Why? Because he's the Duke. He's the one in charge. I will hear that play. Why? For never anything can be amiss when simpleness and duty tender it. Simpleness. Simplicity. Okay? Can they help being what they are? The rude mechanicals, the rustics. No, they can't. What are they attempting to show him? Duty. He says nothing goes wrong when those two elements are dominating. Okay? Hippolyta, no, I don't like seeing wretchedness overcharged. What did she mean by wretchedness? These people are morons. I don't want to see them kind of trying to do more than what they are capable of doing. In duty in his service, perishing. Duty in his practice. She's saying duty will not be performed if they can't do it well. Theseus, gentle, sweet, you shall see no such thing. He says they can do nothing in this kind. That is, in this nature, putting on this play. Theseus, the kind are we to give them thanks for nothing. What does that mean? The kind are we to give them thanks for nothing.
Is he saying it'll make them look good?
What will make them look good?
Like kind of taking pity on them, I guess?
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that it's necessarily taking pity. What's he suggesting he won't do? Let me put it that way. About their production of the play. He won't do what I do when I go see a film based on a book I really like. I just rip it apart. Nobody will go see, a movie with me. After the first Lord of the Rings came out, and I just, my wife and kids said, we're not coming. If you see the others, we're just not coming, So I just stopped pretty much seeing movies and books I really liked. He's saying, the kinder we will be kinder. We will be better. We will be nicer. To do what? To give them thanks for their nothing. That is, for their inability to put on this play for us. What? Okay, maybe not their inability. We will give them thanks for their crappy play. Our sport, our pleasure, shall be to take what they mistake. That is, he's saying he knows their intentions are what? Their intentions are good. Their intentions are to please us. Therefore, we will take everything that they do as having achieved that intention. And what poor duty cannot do, okay, noble respect takes it in might, not merit. Merit, their ability to actually do it. He says, noble respect takes it in what they are able to do. Okay? Where I have come, great clerks have purposed to greet me with premeditated welcomes, where I have seen them shiver and look pale, make periods in the midst of sentences, throttle or practice accent in their fears, and in conclusion, dumbly have broke off, not paying me a welcome. So I've gone to places where these great orators, he says, suggesting, have come out to welcome me with these great words, and once they've come into my presence, they start stuttering and stumbling. Okay? And so what does he say? Trust me, sweet. Out of this silence, yet I picked a welcome. Why? They did their best. What more can one ask? And in the modesty of fearful duty, I read as much as from the rattling tongue of saucy and audacious eloquence. Love, therefore, he's not addressing her as love. He's not saying love, Hippolyta, therefore. He's saying love, therefore. And tongue-tied simplicity in least, that is, in the least of these, speak most to my capacity. If someone intends something, he says, then whether or not they succeed, whether or not they achieve whatever the goal is, that's not important. So Philostrates comes in and says, all right, here's the prologue. And Peter Quince comes up. Notice the punctuation. The punctuation is given oratorically. That is, the punctuation is telling you how Peter Quince pronounces this little speech. It's all wrong. He doesn't intend it to come across the way it is punctuated. He intends almost the exact opposite of what he says. This is why punctuation is really important. If we offend, it is with our good will. Hard stop. Period. What does that mean? It is our good will to offend you. Not what he means. If we offend, this is how it should be read. Well, let me read how it is read first. If we offend, it is with our good will that you should think we come not to offend, but with good will. To show our simple skill, that is the true beginning of our end. Consider, then, we come but in despite. We do not come as minding to content you. Our true intent is, all for your delight we are not here. That you should here repent you, the actors are at hand. And by their show, you shall know all that you are like to know. That's why Theseus says, this fellow doth not stand upon points, meaning marks of punctuation. He doesn't know where he should stop, pause, and then go on. Here's how it should be read. If we offend, it is with our good will that you should think we come not to offend. Notice the difference. But with good will to show our simple skill, that is the true beginning of our end. End there meaning purposes. Consider, then we come but in despite, we do not come as minding to content you. Our true intent is all for your delight. We are not here that you should repent you. The actors are at hand, and by their show you shall know. Okay? So he's come out and intended to say, we're just a bunch of dumb yokels. We want to please you. We don't mean to offend you. And he's essentially said the opposite. Okay? So Lysander and the others kind of go back and forth, and we're going to skip a bunch. So the prologue goes on, and what does he do in the prologue? Here's Pyramus, here's Thisbe, here's a lion. It's not really Pyramus, it's not really Thisbe, it's not really a lion. And these are two lovers, and this is an old myth, okay? These are two lovers, and here's what's going to happen. So we see Pyramus come up, all right? And there's a wall. And the guy playing wall is kind of like this. At one point in the play, he does this. Okay? So Pyramus comes out and speaks. O grim, this is bottom. O grim look night, O night with you so black, O night, whichever art when day is not. Really? O night, alack, alack, alack. I fear my Thisbe's promise is forgot. And thou, O wall, O sweet, O lovely wall, thou standst between her father's ground and mine. Thou wall, O sweet and lovely wall, show me thy cheek. And that's when wall does this to make a hole between the wall. Okay? Thisbe comes in. They speak together through the wall. They kiss through the wall. Lion comes out. Skipping a bunch. And Thisbe runs off, dropping her mantle. Okay. The lion tears up the mantle. Pyramus comes back in, speaks to the moon to show the sunny beams from the, anyways. He sees he sees Thisbe's mantle. He thinks the lion got her, and she's dead. So he pulls out a sword and says, line 279, out sword In wound the pap of Pyramus, chest. I that left pap where heart doth hop. Thus die I, thus. And when he says, every production I've seen, thus die I, it's thus die I, thus. So 4 stab wounds to the heart, and he's still talking. Now, but he's not dead. Now am I dead, now am I fled, my soul is in the sky. Well, if his soul is in the sky, should the body be talking? Obviously not. Tongue, lose thy life, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So Theseus, Lysander, Demetrius, Hippolyta, they kind of go back and forth. Thisbe comes out. Thisbe sees Pyramus dead on the stage. What? Dead, my dove? Pyramus, arise, speak, quite dumb, dead, a tomb must cover thy sweet eyes, and she stabs herself. Okay, cool. Thisbe dies. Demetrius, Wall, and Theseus talk back and forth. And then bottom starts up. In other words, the dead arise. No, I assure you, the wall is down that part of their fathers. Will it please you to see the epilogue? And Theseus is like, no, stop. This is bad, Okay? So, they all exit. Puck comes in. Oberon and Titania come in, hand in hand, smiling on their faces. Everything's great. And Oberon tells us what they're going to do. He says, now let us go back to the palace. And until the break of day, 378, through this house each fairy stray. To the best bride bed will we, that is, we're going to Theseus and Hippolyta's bridal chamber, which by us shall blessed be, and issue there create ever shall be fortunate. So shall all the couples 3 ever true in loving be. And the blots of nature's hand shall not in their issue stand. Their children won't have any kind of birth defects. I don't mean like 3 eyes or something like that. I mean no moles, no blemishes. They're going to be perfect children. Okay? With this field dew consecrate, every fairy take his gate. Notice, field dew. This is holy water for elves or fairies, right? So they're going to go through the house, Oberon and Titania to Theseus and Hippolytus, and the other fairies to the other bridal chambers, and they're going to bless them. Everybody leaves but Puck. If we shadows have offended, what did Puck earlier call Oberon? King of shadows. What is a shadow? Just keep that question in mind. Literally, what is a shadow? Because Hamlet, we're going to see a little discussion of shadows. So, if we shadows have offended, think but this, and all is mended. If we've angered you, offended you in any way, think what I'm about to say, and that offense will just drift away. That you have but slumbered here while these visions did appear. What's the title? A Midsummer Night's Dream. And this weak and idle theme, no more yielding but a dream, that is having no more effect but a dream, gentles do not reprehend. Gentles refers not to the people standing in the yard, not to the groundlings. Gentles refers to the people who have purchased seats in the 3 galleries. Okay? Kind of like, you don't count. I'm speaking to you up here. If you pardon, gentles do not reprehend. If you pardon, we will mend. We will make things better. And as I am an honest Puck, big question, is he an honest Puck? Did he mistake, or did he intentionally do what he did? Within the course of the play, it was an accident. Doesn't mean he didn't like the effects of the accident. And as I am an honest Puck, if we have unearned luck, Now to escape the serpent's tongue. What's the serpent's tongue? Psst. Today we would say, boom, if it's a really bad production. In Shakespeare's day, if it's a really bad production, people would pick up off the ground, the groundlings would pick up off the ground stuff that's on the ground and throw it on the stage. I didn't mention this. People relieved themselves standing right there in the yard. Drop their pants, whole 9 yards. And they would pick up whatever's there and throw it on the stage. Kind of makes the playwrights want to put, if they're actors also, make sure it's a good play. So, we will make amends ere long, else the puck a liar calls. So, good night unto you all. Give me your hands if we be friends. Applause. Okay? And usually by this point, in an epilogue, the audience is already applauding and standing on their feet. Okay? Give me your hands if we be friends, and Robin shall restore amends. So, talk about theme maybe on Friday. Start Hamlet. Read all of Act 1. We won't get through all of Act 1 of Hamlet. It's one of the longest acts in the play. But get started on it. I put up another quiz that's just over Midsummer Night's Dream, if I remember correctly. Pretty sure. Due Friday evening. It's only 10 questions. It's multiple choice, and there's no extra credit. Shouldn't take any time at all.